Hello and welcome to Cinema Wellman. I'm your host, David, and if you're listening to this episode as opposed to watching it, you're missing out on the very first animated episode of Cinema Wellman. Our amazing artistic director, Denise, created drawings of me in the studio that will be shown during this episode, highlighting Cinema Wellman's top 10, bottom 5 animated movies. I'll attempt to add more visual effects during post-production, but no promises since I really don't know what I'm doing still. Denise also designed the label for a beer Andrew brewed a few years ago, so I'll make sure I include a shot of that as well. She's an extremely talented artist, and she's a teacher, so you know I'm a big fan. Thank you, D-Nice. I compiled my top 10 bottom 5 animated films list a while ago when I started planning this episode. Then, on the heels of the crowdsourced March Madness episode we did last month, I thought I'd ask family and friends about their favorite animated films. I got some fantastic feedback, as it seems like everyone loves an animated movie at some point in their life, even if their love of the genre ended in middle school. I enjoyed how some people were adamant that their choice was the sequel to a popular film, which happened with Shrek, Inside Out, and All Dogs Go to Heaven. Not that they disliked the original, but come on, the second one was better. I also loved how I asked for a favorite, but added that S to make it plural, and some of my friends took full advantage of that. Some people asked what kind of animation I was talking about, and my response was, all of it. Hand-drawn animation, computer-drawn animation, stop-motion, claymation, everything was in play. Well, let's begin with a quick definition which supports the inclusion of all of those styles of animation I just mentioned. Animation is a method of photographing successive drawings, models, or even, yikes, puppets to create an illusion of movement in a sequence. Because our eyes can only retain an image for approximately 1/10 of a second, when multiple images appear in fast succession, the brain blends them into a single moving image. I dabbled in stop-motion filmmaking at BU, and as I've mentioned here before, it is an unbelievably painstaking and torturous project. And I was just animating psychic vegetables marching out of my refrigerator and killing people. I can't imagine making a full-length film using this process. The bottom 5 today is all mine, since I didn't ask people for animated movies they hated. There's no point in that. We got to water the positive seeds. And the top 10 today is mostly mine, but I was also influenced by the feedback I got from those I asked. As we always do here, we will begin at the bottom of the barrel. As of right now, I have seen a total of 251 animated films from over 20 countries in a variety of genres over the years, and only 11 of them, a mere 4%, were given the bomb. What could be so bad about an animated movie that it was given the Cinema Wellman bomb, you may ask? Well, we will get that. We'll get into that after a quick trivia question for you. Here we go. What do the following animated films have in common? Are you ready? Cinderella, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Pocahontas, The Princess and the Frog, Frozen, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, The Fox and the Hound, The Black Cauldron, Oliver and Company, Tarzan, Atlantis, The Lost Empire, Treasure Planet, Chicken Little, Meet the Robinsons, Bambi, and The Lion King. I know you know this. Think Disney protagonists. The answer? Full Metal Orphan. All of those Disney films feature a protagonist with at least one dead parent. It's a dead parent. Come on, Disney. Do you really need to do this over and over? Do you realize the trauma you've caused over the years insisting the movie cannot go on unless the protagonist, usually a young protagonist, has at least one dead parent? Protagonists can have adventures and also have moms and dads. You can write them out. TV shows do it all the time. You can do that, can't you? Okay, back to the bottom. And it's a movie I've already savaged in a previous episode, but in this case, I do not mind piling on. It is The Queen's Corgi. It's Belgian from 2019, PG, 85 minutes too long. IMDb 4.9, directed by Vincent Kesteloot. IMDb says the British monarch's favorite dog gets lost from the palace and finds himself at a dog fight club. No Michael Vick. He then begins his long journey on his way back home. Never a fan of the royal family or colonization, for that matter. The only royal, other than Amos Otis, I ever cared about was Diana. And they killed her, so, there really wasn't anything entertaining about this movie at all. Even the doggy fight club was boring, if that is possible. I don't blame her at all, but the only reason I watched this was because Hannah adores corgis. Not these corgis. What makes this mess even worse is a cartoon cameo by the current president. I don't want to see him in real form or cartoon form, like ever. Next, from 2004, The Polar Express. Rated G, 100 minutes, IMDb 6.6, directed by Robert Zemeckis. IMDb. On Christmas Eve, a young boy embarks on a magical adventure to the North Pole on the Polar Express while learning about friendship, bravery, and the spirit of Christmas. Bullshit. Good story. Loved the book. Big Chris Van Allsburg fan and read several of his books to the girls when they were little. Shout out to the Garden of Abdul Ghazazi. But this Polar Express animation was so creepy. I didn't think it was possible for someone to create something capable of causing Tom Hanks night terrors, but this is it. I guess I can't trust Hanks in the hands of Robert Zemeckis unless it's 2024's Here, which I really enjoyed. Polar Express and Gump, yeah, not at all. Next, from 1942, Bambi, approved, not by me, 69 minutes, IMDb 7.3, directed by James Algar and 8 other people. IMDb. The story of a young deer growing up in the forest. Period. End of sentence. That's it? That's all you have to say? IMDb? All right. Bambi's animation and imagery, stunning. There's no doubt about it. But, and this is a big but, if Disney will shotgun Bambi's mother, they're capable of anything. I never trusted them after seeing this as a kid, and I think this film single-handedly made me think that hunting was wrong. And I prefer Bambi Meets Godzilla, which is real, and you can watch it on the YouTubes. It's less than 2 minutes long, and I was shown this film in film school at BU. And I don't really dislike the Bambi character. It's not an anti-Bambi thing. It's an anti-Disney thing. Speaking of Disney, next, from 1941, Dumbo. Also got the approved rating, 64 minutes. At least these are short. IMDb 7.2. Directed by Samuel Armstrong and 5 others. Everybody directs these movies. IMDb says, ridiculed because of his enormous ears, a young circus elephant is assisted by a mouse to achieve his full potential. I remember seeing this once when I was little and being scared by it and disliking everything about it. But I didn't see it until the late 60s. What were they trying to do in 1941? Toughen up kids during World War II? Why would you expose children to this? When does this one enter the public domain? Because I prefer a full-blown horror Dumbo complete with flyover murders as opposed to any of this. Dumbo should have gone all topsy on his handlers, if you ask me. This movie made me think that circuses were terrible places. Who would take a kid to a circus? With you there 100%, Dakota. And here is the worst of the worst, 1972's Fritz the Cat. And when I emailed friends and family or texted them about this, looking for your favorites, Andrew jokingly said, well, Fritz the Cat. Okay, it's the worst, okay? 1972 Fritz the Cat, rated X. 78 minutes, IMDb 6.2, directed by Ralph Bakshi. IMDb, in the late 1960s, a pretentious, womanizing young cat drops out of college, starts a riot in Harlem, hits the road with an ex-girlfriend, and gets mixed up with domestic terrorists. I'm not making that up. This X rating does not exist anymore. It was phased out by the MPAA in 1990 and replaced by NC-17 so as not to confuse their X with the triple X used by the adult film industry. Pre-1990, any non-adult X-rated films released in theaters certainly gained attention, and one, Midnight Cowboy, even won a Best Picture Oscar. So even as a 10-year-old, I was aware that there was a cat cartoon out there that was just for grown-ups. I didn't really understand why that existed when I was 10. Then I watched Fritz the Cat when I was in high school. And I was 16 and didn't understand why it existed. I am now 63 years old and I still really don't understand why it exists. I don't get who this movie is for. Why do the female cats in this movie have breasts like female humans? And why are we sexualizing cats? I honestly don't know what to tell you. So enough of the trash. Let's take a look at our top 10 animated films. Be warned, the first three are pretty bizarre, and nobody I asked about this project mentioned any of them. So they're certainly off the radar. And I'm going to cheat right off the bat and lump three movies together. Not a big deal, since the three films added together are a whopping 6 minutes long. And Hannah told me I could do whatever I want here. Here they are. Western Spaghetti, Fresh Guacamole, Submarine Sandwich. Western Spaghetti, 2008, unrated. They're all unrated. They're all 2 minutes. IMDb 7.1. Oh, I'm sorry. And they're all directed by PES. P-E-S. All caps. Don't know if it's P-E-S or PES. Don't know, but a big fan. Here we go. Western Spaghetti, IMDb. Everyday objects become delicious ingredients as we learn how to cook spaghetti through stop-motion photography. Also, Fresh Guacamole from 2012, IMDb 7.4. Oscar nominee for Best Short Animated Film. IMDb says transforming familiar objects into fresh guacamole. And Submarine Sandwich from 2014, IMDb 6.9. A butcher makes an unusual submarine sandwich using sports equipment. All right, you heard me correctly. You can enjoy all three of these amazingly creative stop-motion animated films in less time than it takes to make spaghetti, guacamole, or a submarine sandwich. And all are available on what I call the YouTubes. Filmmaker Pez cooks up three different tasty treats using everything but food. These have to be seen to be believed, so see them on YouTube. One of my favorites is when the deli guy in Submarine Sandwich puts a soccer ball into the meat slicer and the slices are Viewmaster wheels. Just think about that. It's perfect. Next, from 2009 and Belgium, A Town Called Panic. Rated PG, 75 minutes, IMDb 7.4, directed by Stéphane Aubier. IMDb, Cowboy and Indian's only wish was to come up with a brilliant idea for Mr. Horse's birthday, but when their plan ends up in utter disaster, they'll need to travel the world and back to make things right again. If Dakota and I did a Pick 7 episode, this would have been our 7th film. This is 75 minutes of absurdity that will have you wondering so many different things as you watch it. A horse taking a shower in a regular bathroom shower, that's one of them. A Town Called Panic is a stop-motion film that used 1,500 plastic toys and was shot in 260 days. For a 75-minute film to be shot in 260 days, that means each day of shooting yielded 3.5 minutes of screen time. That will give you a clue about how long this type of animation takes to get to you. And some of the dialogue in this film is as absurd as the premise itself. This Belgian treat is now available on Canopy, so you can see it, since I know that everyone by now has a library card and has taken advantage of all that Canopy and Hoopla have to offer. One more movie nobody has heard about before getting into some classics. It's from France in 2009. It's titled Logorama, and it was an Oscar winner for Best Short Animated Film, rated R, 16 minutes, IMDb 7.5, directed by Francois Allo. IMDb, police chase an armed criminal in a version of Los Angeles composed entirely of corporate logos. I know this is an odd thing to say, but I am a big fan of logos, and I have been since I was a kid. I've always been fascinated by them, whether they're the logos of sports teams, corporations, or products, which means that Logorama was a 16-minute treasure hunt for me, since pretty much everything in this film is a logo of some sort. Over 2,000 contemporary and historical company logos and mascots are featured. More math tells us that that's 125 logos to spot per minute. The police mentioned in the synopsis are Michelin men, and the criminal is an absolutely psychotic Ronald McDonald who is extremely violent. This is rated R for a reason. It's the last time I'll say it today because you've probably seen everything else on today's list, but you need to see this one to believe it, and you can because it's also available on the YouTubes. Our next entry is here because it got a lot of love when I asked around. I was kind of surprised because of how old the movie is and how relatively young the people I asked were. And that filled me with hope, actually. It's from 1951, Alice in Wonderland. The approval rating, approved again, 75 minutes. They made him short. I love it. IMDb 7.3, directed by Clyde Geronimini, Wilfred Jackson, and Hamilton Lusk. IMDb tells us Alice stumbles into the world of Wonderland. Will she get home? Not if the Queen of Hearts has her way. From the movie, why is a raven like a writing desk? Because Edgar Allan Poe wrote on both. This is classic, old-school, hand-drawn Disney animation filled with songs and characters based on the classic tale of Lewis Carroll. It was also a box office failure that was later embraced by the counterculture during the psychedelia times of the 60s. Think about the Jefferson Airplane song, White Rabbit. Even though it was made 75 years ago, the colors and the animation are crisp and dazzling. I didn't read the unabridged version of Through the Looking Glass until I was in college, and it was some wild, wild stuff. Alice also doesn't have a love interest, which is refreshing for a Disney movie. Princess. She's a princess, right? Does she count? She does, right? She's just on a trip. And that's enough. Next, from 2007, Ratatouille. Oscar winner, Best Animated Feature Film. Rated G, 111 minutes. IMDb, 8.1. Directed by Brad Bird and John Pavinka. IMDb, a rat who can cook forms an unusual alliance with a young kitchen worker at a famous restaurant in Paris. If you know me, you know that I am terrified of rats, so I never counted Ratatouille as a favorite animated film of mine because of my murophobia. And I love to cook, so a movie about a rat that helps someone prepare food in the kitchen gave me the icks. But after a rewatch to prepare for our City Spotlight Paris episode from Season 2, Remy helped me do a 180. This is a truly delightful film that wonderfully animates the City of Light and highlights the culinary skills of vermin. And Peter O'Toole voices one of the characters, so amazing. Next, from 1995, Toy Story. Not an Oscar nominee. They were robbed. No, actually, Best Animated Feature category didn't exist until 2002. They certainly would have been. Rated G, 81 minutes. IMDb 8.3, directed by John Lasseter. Toy Story 3 from 2010 was an Oscar winner for Best Animated Feature Film. Let's go back to the original one. A cowboy doll is profoundly jealous when a new spaceman action figure supplants him as the top toy in a boy's bedroom. When circumstances separate them from their owner, the duo have to put aside their differences to return to him. I'm only going to reference the OG in this series, but there are 3 others out there, as you know, and Toy Story 5 is headed our way in just 2 months. This is an extremely popular franchise that is now 31 years old, so their fans span all ages at this point. I was 33 when this came out, and many of the toys featured were nostalgic to me. My favorite was always Mr. Potato Head, voiced by Don Rickles. The thought that Mr. Warmth, with all of his controversial, somewhat cringy comedy, is a major part of this family franchise makes me laugh. This film is the first fully computer animated movie and required 800,000 machine hours and over 114,000 animation frames. I'm a little surprised this franchise is as popular as it is when one of the main characters is pretty much an obnoxious jerk and arrogant bully. Woody really is the least likable character in the entire series, if you ask me, even when there are actual antagonists brought into the story in later installments. And what the hell was that incinerator sequence about in Toy Story 3? That was terrifying. That was upsetting. Please don't do that to us. Ever. Bo Peep doesn't come back, does she? Next up, I'm going to cheat again and bundle two movies together. Fantastic Mr. Fox from 2009, which was an Oscar nominee for Best Animated Feature Film, rated PG, 87 minutes, IMDb 7.9, directed by friend of Cinema Wellman, Wes Anderson. An urbane fox cannot resist returning to his farm raiding ways, and then must help his community survive the farmer's retaliation. And I'm going to bundle that with 2018's Isle of Dogs, also an Oscar nominee for Best Animated Feature Film, PG-13, 101 minutes, IMDb 7.8, also Wes Anderson. Set in Japan, Isle of Dogs follows a boy's odyssey in search of his lost dog. Stop-motion animated films directed by Wes Anderson? Yes and yes. No surprise that they made the list, and since I couldn't decide which to include, and they were equally liked by those who were asked, you get them both. You cannot lose. You cannot lose. You can choose. You cannot lose when choosing between these two films. One is a heist film with George Clooney, Meryl Streep, Willem Dafoe, Owen Wilson, and Bill Murray, while the other is an adventure odyssey with Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Jeff Goldblum, Greta Gerwig, Frances McDormand, and again, Bill Murray, among others. ScarJo. Isle of Dogs was inspired by the works of the great director Akira Kurosawa and the old Rankin Bass animated Christmas specials, and features the talents of 4 Oscar winners and 8 Oscar nominees, once again proving how anyone who's anyone wants to work with Wes Anderson. 535 puppets were made for Fantastic Mr. Fox, 102 of them of Mr. Fox alone in 6 different sizes. More amazing work by director Wes Anderson, and we never get tired of talking about him here at Cinema Wellman. If you haven't seen either of these films, fix that as soon as you can. And while you're at it, ¿Por qué no los dos? Which would also apply to our next film, Inside Out 2015, Oscar winner, Best Animated Feature Film, rated PG, 95 minutes, IMDb 8.1, directed by Pete Docter. After young Riley is uprooted from her Midwest life and moved to San Francisco, her emotions, joy, fear, anger, disgust, and sadness conflict on how best to navigate a new city, house, and school. I am a huge proponent of mental health. I think it's something a lot of people should pay a lot more attention to. When I was teaching, I stressed with my students the importance of their mental health and how it was as important as your physical health. Feelings are real. It's okay to have them, and it's more than okay to talk about them. But we all know that sometimes kids are more likely to listen to a movie than a parent or a teacher, so we have a movie to remind kids about navigating their feelings and their problems, which works for me. Joy, fear, anger, disgust, sadness, voiced by Amy Poehler, Bill Hader, Louis Black, among others. And in Inside Out 2, they're joined by these are anxiety, envy, embarrassment, and ennui. Anxiety and envy are voiced by Maya Hawke and Ayo Edebiri. Quality talent there all around, and good writing that isn't dumbed down, and these films get their points across without being preachy. The new city, new house, and especially new school storyline is very real and can be a nightmare for a kid. You know this hits home with so many teenagers and preteens out there who have gone through the exact same thing and felt the same way as Riley. Seeing yourself validated on screen certainly can't hurt, and I have a feeling that these two films opened more doors and started more conversations than 10,000 middle school guidance counselor sessions. And the fact that Inside Out 2 deals with puberty, all the better. Parents need all the help they can get when those shenanigans begin. Next, from Japan in 2001, an Oscar winner for Best Animated Feature Film, Spirited Away. Rated PG, 124 minutes, IMDb 8.6, directed by Hayao Miyazaki. IMDb, during her family's move to the suburbs, a sullen 10-year-old girl wanders into a world ruled by gods, witches, and spirits, and where humans are changed into beasts. Spirited Away happens to be my favorite Miyazaki film and my favorite Studio Ghibli film, and I'm not the only person out there who says this. Just because it's arguably the most well-known Ghibli Miyazaki film doesn't mean it can't be your favorite. As Andrew and I always say, if Stairway to Heaven is your favorite Led Zeppelin song, then Stairway to Heaven is your favorite Led Zeppelin song. I've had this conversation with a lot of people, including my tattoo artist Maya. She had several Studio Ghibli decorations in her space, so I asked which film was her favorite. She gave me the sheepish grin I'd come to expect while waiting for the response, Spirited Away. Maya is another talented artist with Cinema Wellman connections. If you ever find yourself in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and in need of a tattoo, look her up. You'll find her at Raygun Samurai. Mention my name. Mention Cinema Wellman. I'll show you something. A sticker, at the very least. And if you do need a tattoo, Maya has already done a Cinema Wellman bomb on me. So we can make that a popular thing. Chet's got one. The truth of the matter is that you cannot go wrong with a Studio Ghibli film. I'm going to talk a little bit about Spirited Away, but I just as easily could be talking about how amazing and magical and special other Studio Ghibli films are. Films like My Neighbor Totoro, Howl's Moving Castle, Princess Mononoke, Kiki's Delivery Service, Ponyo, Castle in the Sky, Porco Rosso, and Pompoko, many of which were mentioned in my informal, unscientific poll. All are well worth your time, and after sampling a few, you'll have a favorite of your own. And you never know. It just might be Spirited Away. In the Cinema Wellman first, I'm going to quote the Wall Street Journal. Here we go. Spirited Away is a wonderfully welcoming work of art that's as funny and entertaining as it is brilliant, beautiful, and deep. And that's good enough for us. I guarantee that you'll fall in love with Chihiro, and as she goes through some family turmoil and transformations, these things can only exist in a Studio Ghibli movie. We have one movie to go, but before we get to that film, which happens to be my favorite animated film of all time, I did want to mention some of the other titles that were submitted to me that I didn't talk about today because they're all, of course, valid choices. Here are some other things that got some love from friends and family. Jungle Book, The Lion King, Persepolis, Brave Little Toaster, Kim Possible, A Stitch in Time, The Little Mermaid, Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, Encanto, Elemental, Aladdin, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Monsters, Inc., Shrek, The Aristocats, All Dogs Go to Heaven, K-Pop Demon Hunters, Chicken Run, Coco, Orion in the Dark, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, which I watched. There were 3 films that were suggested by friends that I had not seen that intrigued me. So I watched all 3 of them, and I'm happy to report that all 3 of them, which I did not include in the list that I just gave you, will be included in our episode breaking down the best and worst of April, and they're all going to be on the best side. But before we get to that episode, let's talk about my all-time favorite animated film. It's from 1991, and it was an Oscar winner for original score and original song, and the original song was Beauty and the Beast, and it's from 1991's Beauty and the Beast, rated G. 84 minutes, IMDb 8.0, directed by Gary Truesdale. IMDb, a prince cursed to spend his days as a hideous monster sets out to regain his humanity by earning a young woman's love. 1,295 painted backgrounds and 120,000 drawings were used. This is the first animated film to be nominated for Best Picture, and that's when there were only 5 nominees, the way it still should be. It lost to The Silence of the Lambs. Think about that for a second. It was also the first animated movie to use the Wilhelm scream. Belle is the only official Disney princess to have hazel eyes. The only animated film in the Blu-ray wing of the Cinema Wellman DVD vault. Does that matter? I don't think so, but it's still my favorite. I love the characters, especially Lumiere. I love the songs and know all the words. And Belle is firmly carved on my Disney Princess Mount Rushmore, which is probably going to be an episode at some point. An intelligent, thoughtful, independent young woman who loves to read? Are you kidding? Belle is the best. Well, that is a wrap from here at Cinema Wellman for what ended up being our top 17 bottom 5 animated films of all time. Thank you again to everyone who gave me their input during my preparation for this episode. And thank you again, Hannah, for reminding me that it's fine to do a top 17 bottom 5 list. We hope you're with us next time when I relinquish this chair and we will have our first ever guest host here at Cinema Wellman. And Chet, you have the day off. So this guest host is flying solo. Tune in for that to see how all of that goes. And until then, take care.